everyone, I'm Sarah, and this is Budget Sew, where we sew more and spend less. Today I'm taking a look at 2 sewing books that are packed with garment making inspiration. Sew for Yourself and How to Sew Clothes. Even though I've been sewing for quite a while, I still enjoy collecting and reading sewing books. They're a wonderful source of inspiration, techniques, fitting advice, and sometimes even pattern ideas that I might not have considered before. And if you're new to garment sewing, books like these can help build confidence by breaking the process down into manageable steps. Both of today's books focus on helping sewists create clothing they can actually wear and enjoy. They cover the sewing process from choosing fabrics and understanding patterns to constructing finished garments. Along the way, they offer plenty of practical advice, helpful illustrations, and project inspiration. What I find especially interesting is that every sewing author has a slightly different approach. Some focus on building skills, some focus on creativity, and others focus on helping you create a handmade wardrobe that reflects your personal style. That's one of the reasons I enjoy comparing sewing books and seeing what each one brings to the table. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's take a look inside Sew for Yourself and How to Sew Clothes to see what they have to offer. Just a quick note before we get started, today I'm wearing my quilted jacket. The link to the video with that make is right here at the top of the screen. The first book is Best for Sewing Sustainability on a Budget. It's called Sew for Yourself, 50 Great Garments from Recycled Fabric. I found it on eBay for such a great price. The book is the definition of budget sew energy. The entire concept is to take 5 basic patterns and turn them into 50 different garments, mostly using recycled or thrifted fabric. It teaches you how to see fabric differently, how to work with what you already have, and how to stretch one idea into multiple designs. For example, a basic skirt pattern can become a casual everyday skirt, a dress by extending it, a layered piece, or something totally different depending on the fabric. Why does that matter? Because it breaks you out of the mindset of, I need a new pattern for every new idea. Sewing for Yourself encourages the use of old bed sheets, a budget sew staple, thrifted garments, and leftover yardage. Some of the best sewing projects come from constraints, not from unlimited options. This is how you build a wardrobe without constantly spending money. One pattern that really appeals to me in Sew for Yourself is the Ingrid Pants. Finding a great pair of pants can be one of the most frustrating parts of shopping. It seems like every brand fits differently, and when you finally find a style you like, they stop making it. That's one of the reasons why I think learning to sew your own pants is such a valuable skill. What I like about the Ingrid Pants is that the book doesn't just give you one pair of pants. It starts with a basic pattern and then shows you how to make several different designs from that foundation. The same pattern can be used to make straight leg pants, flared pants, slacks, and other variations. Out of all the options, I think the straight leg version is probably the one I would make first. A good pair of straight leg pants is one of the most versatile garments you can have in your wardrobe. They can be dressed up for work, worn casually with accessories, or paired with a blouse and cardigan for a polished everyday outfit. I'm also very tempted by the flare version. Fashion trends come and go, but flared pants always seem to find their way back into style. I think they have an elegant silhouette and can be incredibly flattering. Depending on the fabric choice, they could have a vintage 1970s vibe or a more modern tailored look. Then there's the cargo version, which might be the most practical of all. Cargo pants have been incredibly popular again, and I like the idea of making a pair that actually fits properly. Plus, who doesn't appreciate extra pockets? This pattern encourages sewists to experiment with different fabrics. The book mentions everything from linen and corduroy to heavier fabrics and even repurposed textiles. Since this book is all about sustainable sewing and making the most of what you already have, it gets you thinking creatively about fabric choices. And what I find especially appealing is that once you've taken the time to fit the basic pattern, you can keep using it again and again. Instead of starting from scratch every time you want a new pair of pants, you already have a pattern that works for your body. That's really the theme that runs throughout this entire book. It's not just about making one garment. It's about creating a foundation that you can build on over time. One fitted pair of pants can become a whole collection of trousers in different styles, colors, and fabrics. For me, the Ingrid Pants perfectly represents what I love about Sew For Yourself. They're practical, versatile, and designed to help you get the most out of a single pattern, rather than constantly buying new ones. Another pattern that stood out to me in Sew For Yourself is the Ingrid Jacket. Much like the Ingrid Pants, this isn't just one pattern. The authors show how a single basic jacket pattern can be transformed into several different garments, including a blanket jacket, a puffy jacket, and my personal favorite, a raincoat. The raincoat version immediately caught my attention because it looks both practical and stylish. Living in Canada means we spend a lot of time thinking about the weather, and a handmade raincoat is not something you see every day. The sample shown in the book is made from a vibrant blue waterproof fabric with a hood, front pockets, and snap closures. I love the color because it feels cheerful on a rainy day. And the simple design makes it something that could be worn with almost anything in your wardrobe. I find it interesting that the authors used waxed cotton for their sample, but they explain that other waterproof or other water-resistant fabrics would work well as well. They even include instructions for sealing the seams with seam binding to help make the finished jacket waterproof. That's the kind of practical information I value in a sewing book. The jacket itself has a relaxed, slightly oversized fit, which makes it ideal for layering over sweaters and other clothing. The hood is another feature I love because it means you can leave the umbrella at home when you're making a quick trip to the store. Of course, the raincoat isn't the only version that appeals to me. The blanket jacket variation is beautiful as well. It uses cozy plaid fabrics and has a casual, comfortable look that would be perfect for fall. I can easily imagine making one from a thrifted blanket or a large wool scarf. I love how versatile the pattern is. The book encourages sewists to customize the length, choose different sleeve styles, add a hood or a collar, and adapt the design to whatever fabric they have available. That's very much in keeping with the book's focus on sustainability and making the most of materials you already own. If I were to make the Ingrid jacket, I would start with the raincoat version. A handmade raincoat is something I don't currently have in my wardrobe and would be both useful and fun to sew. I've heard that there's something incredibly satisfying about making outerwear. It feels like a bigger challenge than sewing a simple top or skirt, but the end result is a garment you can wear for years. What makes the raincoat even more appealing is that it would fit perfectly into the blue capsule wardrobe that I'm currently working on. As many of you know, I'm building a collection of blue garments and accessories that can all be mixed and matched together. The bright blue raincoat shown in this book immediately caught my eye because it would coordinate beautifully with many of the pieces I already own and the projects I have planned. I can picture wearing it over blue dresses, denim skirts, and navy trousers. Instead of just being another practical coat hanging in the closet, it would become part of a coordinated wardrobe that works together. One of the things I enjoy most about sewing is creating garments that genuinely fill gaps in my wardrobe, and a blue raincoat would definitely do that. Not only would it be useful during spring and fall, but it would also add another layer to my blue capsule wardrobe, staying true to the color palette I've chosen. The Ingrid jacket is another example of why I enjoy Sew For Yourself. Instead of giving you dozens of unrelated patterns, the book teaches you how to take one well-designed pattern and transform it into multiple garments. That's a skill that can save money, stretch your fabric stash, and help you build a wardrobe that's uniquely your own. Another pattern that caught my attention in Sew For Yourself is the Ingrid Shirt. At first glance, it looks like a classic button front shirt, but the more I looked at it, the more possibilities I started to see. The pattern has a relaxed, oversized fit that feels comfortable and modern, while still being simple enough to customize in countless ways. The sample shown in the book is made from recycled floral fabric. I love how completely different it looks from the other versions. It proves that fabric choice can change the personality of a garment. As much as I like the shirt version, my favorite variation is definitely the wool shirt jacket. The authors made their sample from a wool curtain, which perfectly captures the spirit of the book. Instead of heading out to buy expensive coating fabric, they looked at existing textiles and imagined, what could it become? That's one of the things I appreciate most about sewing for yourself. It encourages creativity and resourcefulness. The finished shirt jacket has a cozy, relaxed look that feels perfect for Canadian weather. It's a kind of garment that works well as a light jacket in the fall, an extra layer in the winter, or a casual outer layer on cool spring days. What I love most about the wool version is the tie belt. It transforms a simple oversized shirt into something much more polished. The belt creates shape at the waist while still maintaining the comfort and ease of an oversized garment. I could easily imagine making this project from a thrifted wool blanket, a wool curtain panel, or even a vintage wool throw. Those are often much more affordable than purchasing new wool yardage, especially here in Canada where fabric prices can add up quickly. This project also fits perfectly with my approach to sewing. I enjoy finding creative ways to use unexpected materials, and the idea of turning household textiles into wearable clothing is something I find incredibly inspiring. If I were to make the wool shirt jacket, I would choose a soft blue-gray wool so that it would coordinate with the blue capsule wardrobe that I've been building. It would pair beautifully with the Ingrid Pants, jeans, skirts, and many of the blue garments I've been planning throughout the year. The Ingrid Shirt and the Ingrid Jacket demonstrate how a single pattern can evolve into multiple garments. The shirt can be a traditional button front blouse, an oversized tunic, or a shirt jacket. The jacket can become a blanket coat, a raincoat, or a puffy jacket. That's the kind of versatility that makes these patterns incredibly valuable. For sewists who are looking to get the most out of a sewing book, the Ingrid Shirt is a great example of how one basic pattern can become the foundation for an entire collection of garments. What's the most unexpected thing you've ever used as fabric? Leave me a note in the comments. The newest addition to my sewing library is How to Sew Clothes by Amelia Greenhall and Amy Bornman. I picked up my copy from Book Outlet for a fraction of the original retail price, which made it an easy addition to my collection. One of the reasons I was interested in this book is that it focuses on creating practical, wearable garments while encouraging sewists to customize and adapt patterns to suit their style. The subtitle describes the projects as intuitive and super hackable, which immediately caught my attention because I love books that teach skills rather than simply providing instructions to make one specific garment. As someone who enjoys getting as much value as possible from my sewing resources, I appreciate books that encourage experimentation and multiple variations from the same basic pattern. Those are often the books I return to again and again. One of my favorite patterns in How to Sew Clothes is the box top. At first glance, it looks very simple, but sometimes the simplest patterns are the most useful. The box top is designed to be loose-fitting with plenty of ease through the body. It has a relaxed silhouette, drop shoulders, and a modern casual look that would fit into almost any wardrobe. The author describes it as a blank canvas for beautiful fabric, and I agree. What I find especially interesting is that this pattern became the foundation for the author's pattern company. She spent years refining the design, sewing countless versions, and adjusting the fit before including it in the book. This tells me that this is a pattern that has really been tested and perfected over time. Because the design is so simple, the fabric choice becomes incredibly important. The book recommends woven fabrics with drapes such as linen, cotton, rayon, or silk, and I can imagine each fabric creating a completely different look. A crisp linen would feel casual and summery, while a drapey rayon would create a more softer, elegant silhouette. Of course, if I were making the pattern, I'd probably want to put my own spin on it. The box top would be a fantastic base for color blocking, embroidery, applique, decorative trims, or even piecing together smaller fabric remnants. I could see it made from vintage linens or thrifted fabrics for a unique look. The pattern doesn't try to be complicated. It's a garment that allows the fabric and the sewist's creativity to take center stage. For a beginner, it's an approachable first garment. For a more experienced sewist, it's a versatile wardrobe staple that can be customized in countless ways. This is exactly the kind of pattern I enjoy because it proves that a simple design doesn't have to be boring. Sometimes a few pattern pieces and a great fabric choice are all you need to create something you'll wear again and again. I could also see this made from a thrifted tablecloth, a vintage sheet, or even several coordinating remnants pieced together. Since the pattern uses only 2 main body pieces, it would be a great opportunity to get creative with fabrics that I already have on hand. While I really like the simplicity of the original box top, I have to admit that I was immediately drawn to the Ruffle Box Top and Ruffle Dress variation. What I love about this design is that it shows how a small pattern change can transform a garment. The original box top version had a clean modern silhouette, but by adding a gathered ruffle, it takes on a more softer and more playful look. The version shown in the book has a relaxed fit through the shoulders and body, with the gathered ruffle creating a flattering peplum effect. It feels comfortable and easy to wear while still looking stylish and put together. The author encourages sewists to customize the amount of gathering and the length of the ruffle. If you want a subtle effect, you can use less fabric. If you want something more dramatic, you can increase the gathering and create a fuller silhouette. That's one of the things I enjoy about sewing. You can tailor a pattern to your own personal style. The book also explains how to lengthen the ruffle to create the dress. I think that's a fantastic idea because it essentially gives you multiple garments from one pattern. You can make a top, a tunic, or a dress simply by adjusting the length. If I were to make the pattern, I'd probably choose a lightweight fabric with plenty of drape, such as rayon challis, viscose, or a soft cotton lawn. Those fabrics would allow the gathers to fall beautifully without becoming too bulky. Of course, I'd also be tempted to put my own budget sew spin on it. I could see this made from a thrifted bedsheet, a vintage tablecloth, or even several coordinating remnants sewn together before gathering the ruffle. A contrast ruffle in different fabrics could also be a fun way to make the design stand out. What I like most about this variation is that it demonstrates how versatile the box top pattern really is. It starts as a simple wardrobe basic, but with one clever modification, it becomes a completely different garment with its own personality and style. This pattern would also be a great opportunity to use some lace trim from my stash along the ruffle seam. A little bit of lace, eyelet, or vintage trim could make this look even more romantic. Another pattern that caught my eye is the Cardigan Coat. This pattern takes the comfort of a cardigan and combines it with the practicality of a jacket, creating a pattern that looks cozy, stylish, and incredibly wearable. One of the first things I noticed was the bright orange version shown in the book. I absolutely love that color. It's bold, cheerful, and full of personality. So often outerwear is made in neutral shades, but this vibrant orange immediately stands out and shows how much impact color can have on a garment. The pattern itself has a relaxed silhouette with plenty of ease, making it ideal for layering over tops, sweaters, and dresses. The book explains that the fit can be adjusted depending on how much room you want, which means you can customize it to suit your wardrobe and your personal style. I appreciate how versatile the design is. The pattern can be made either as a cardigan style jacket or a longer coat, and there are options for different pocket styles. Small design changes completely alter the finished look, allowing you to create a garment that feels uniquely yours. The recommended fabrics include medium weight woven fabrics, such as linen, wool, and canvas. Looking at the samples in the book, I can imagine this pattern working beautifully in a boiled wool, coating fabric, corduroy, denim, or even a sturdy upholstery weight fabric from a thrift store. If I were making this pattern, I'd probably be tempted to experiment with color. The orange sample is beautiful, but I could also see it made in a rich teal, a deep burgundy, or even a fun vintage-inspired print. It would also be a wonderful opportunity to use statement buttons or add a colorful lining. What I like most about this pattern is that it feels timeless. It has a simple shape that won't go out of style. but it also provides plenty of opportunities for customization. That's exactly the kind of pattern I enjoy because it can be sewn again and again while looking different each time. For anyone building a handmade wardrobe, I think this cardigan coat or jacket would be a fantastic addition. It's practical, comfortable, and stylish while still being approachable for home sewists. I could see myself making this from a wool blanket found at a thrift store or even from a heavy curtain panel. The simple shape would let an interesting fabric take center stage. One of my favorite projects in how to sew clothes is the book bag. As someone who loves reading, this pattern immediately caught my attention. The design is simple but incredibly practical. It's essentially a fabric tote bag designed to carry books, but it could easily be used for so much more. Whether you're heading to the library, a bookstore, a book club meeting, or simply carrying your current reads around town, this bag looks like a useful companion. The pattern comes in multiple sizes. The smaller version would be perfect for carrying a novel, a knitting project, or even a few sewing supplies, while the larger version could easily handle several books, magazines, or even a trip to the fabric store. The examples shown in the book demonstrate how much fabric choice can influence the final results. The floral version feels soft and romantic, while the waffle textured version has a modern, minimalist appearance. Both are attractive, but they have completely different personalities. Of course, if I were making this bag, I would have a hard time choosing the fabric. I could see it made from a sturdy quilting cotton, a thrifted curtain panel, denim from old jeans, or even a vintage bed sheet. Since the bag doesn't require much fabric, it could also be a wonderful stash busting project. I also think that this would be a great opportunity to personalize the design. You could add pockets, decorative trims, embroidery, appliques, or even fabric printed with books, cats, flowers, or whatever theme makes you happy. What appeals to me most about this project is that it's both practical and enjoyable. I love sewing garments, but sometimes it's nice to make an accessory that can be made fairly quickly and used every day. As a reader, there's something especially satisfying about carrying books in a handmade bag. If I decide to make this project, I could see myself making several variations. One for library books, one for knitting or crochet projects, and perhaps another for carrying sewing supplies when I'm working on a project away from home. It's the kind of pattern that would make a thoughtful handmade gift as well. For a book lover like me, this pattern is one of the highlights of the book. I always seem to come home from thrift stores with sewing books, pattern catalogs, and crafting magazines, so a handmade book bag would definitely get plenty of use around here. After spending some time with both How to Sew Clothes and Sew for Yourself, I can see why these books have become favorites among garment sewists. What I appreciate is that neither book is just a collection of patterns. They both teach creativity, skills, and show how a few simple pattern pieces can be transformed into an entire wardrobe. Whether it's the box top and its many variations, the cardigan coat, the book bag, or other projects throughout the books, there are plenty of opportunities to learn new techniques or put your own spin on the designs. I also love that the projects can be adapted to suit your style, your fabric stash, and your budget. That's one of the things I enjoy most about sewing. Two people can start with the exact same pattern and end up with different finished garments. Looking through these books has given me plenty of ideas on future sewing projects. I can already imagine the fabrics I'd choose, the modifications I'd make, and how I could incorporate some thrifted materials and stash fabrics into these designs. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you sewn from either of these books? Which project would you make first? The Ingrid Pants, Jacket, Shirt, the box top, the ruffle dress, the cardigan coat, the book bag, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss future sewing, thrifting, crafting, pattern haul, and book review videos here on BudgetSew. Thanks for watching. See you next time.